You've been told to take vitamin D, magnesium, and K2 together, or else. One of those claims is rock solid biochemistry, one is marketing wearing a lab coat. The nutrient trio may be the most recommended supplement stack on the planet. Every health account you follow has said it. It's possible even your doctor has said it. The logic given is usually some version of this. Vitamin D raises your calcium, and without K2 to direct that calcium, it ends up in your arteries instead of your bones. Take D alone, the claim goes, and you're risking vascular calcification. That claim has actually been tested in randomized trials. We'll get to those. The synergy isn't pure marketing. One of these three relationships is settled biochemistry your body can't operate without. The problem is that the strongest claim and the weakest claim are sold in the same sentence at the same volume as if the evidence behind them were equal, and it's not. So let's take each relationship and ask one question. What does it actually rest on? Vitamin D is inert when it enters the body. To become useful, it gets converted twice. The first conversion happens in the liver, turning it into the form measured on a blood test. The number a doctor means when they say your vitamin D is low. The second conversion happens in the kidney, turning that into the active hormone the body actually uses. One enzyme runs the first step, a different enzyme runs the second. Two conversions, two organs, two enzymes. Now, the popular explanation for magnesium is that it acts as the cofactor those enzymes cannot work without. That overstates what's actually established. Go to the primary enzyme studies and the direct evidence is surprisingly thin. One of the few that actually added magnesium to the reaction saw only a modest effect, and it was on the enzymes that break down vitamin D in animal tissue, not the ones that activate it. So at the level of mechanism, the honest answer is that we don't fully know what magnesium is doing, but the mechanism doesn't need to be settled because the human evidence stands on its own. In a large national nutrition survey, people with higher magnesium intake were significantly less likely to be vitamin D deficient, regardless of how much vitamin D they were taking. And in a controlled trial, giving people magnesium didn't simply raise their vitamin D, it moved it toward normal. Those who started low rose, those who started high came down. Less like a booster, more like a thermostat. That's the most solid finding here. Magnesium shapes vitamin D status in real people. We can measure it, we can't yet fully explain it, and an honest account should say so, rather than invent a clean mechanism the enzyme data doesn't actually support. In the US, magnesium intake runs consistently below the recommended level, so if vitamin D won't move despite months of supplementation, magnesium is actually a legitimate place to look. So magnesium and vitamin D interact in a real but loosely understood way. K2 is a different story, and it's the one worth slowing down for because the reasoning behind it is more specific, and it's where the strongest version of you must combine these actually comes from. Here's the actual logic. Your body makes a protein whose job it is to keep calcium out of places it doesn't belong, out of your arteries, out of soft tissue, and directed towards bone instead. But that protein is built inert. It only switches on after vitamin K activates it. Too little vitamin K and the protein stays in its off state. And the system that's supposed to keep calcium in line goes slack. That part is real, well-characterized biology. On top of that sits a second idea, and this is where it gets shakier. The proposal is that vitamin D raises your body's demand for vitamin K by increasing the amount of these vitamin K-dependent proteins you produce. So the more vitamin D you take, the faster you burn through your vitamin K. And if you're loading up on high-dose D without K, you could end up driving calcium into your arteries. That's the basis for the warning, and that's why dangerous gets attached to taking vitamin D alone. It's a clean and frightening story. It also entered the scientific literature explicitly as a hypothesis published in a journal for proposing untested ideas by an author who stated plainly it still needed to be confirmed. So the obvious thing to do is test it. Does adding K2 to vitamin D actually protect the arteries in real people? That question has been put to the trials. The strongest test came out of the journal Circulation, one of the most rigorous cardiology journals there is. Researchers took several hundred older men who already had significant calcium buildup in their heart valves, exactly the people the theories say should benefit the most, and gave them high-dose K2 with vitamin D or placebo for 2 full years. Then they scanned their hearts and measured whether the calcification slowed. It did not. The buildup advanced at essentially the same rate in both groups. The difference between the people taking K2 and the people taking a sugar pill was so small it sat comfortably within the range you'd expect from chance alone. Here's the part that should actually end the argument. In that same trial, the K2 did what the biochemistry promised. It activated that calcium-regulating protein. It shifted the exact marker that proves vitamin K is doing its molecular job. The mechanism worked. The artery simply didn't respond the way you would have predicted. A second trial in patients with severe kidney disease and far higher doses of K2 found the same thing. The marker moved in the right direction and the calcium in their arteries and valves did not change. This is the gap that defines the entire subject. A supplement can do exactly what its mechanism predicts at the molecular level and still change nothing about the outcome you actually care about. K2 activated the protein, but it did not protect the arteries in these cases. And without that protection, the original warning that vitamin D alone drives calcium into your arteries has nothing underneath it. The thing K2 is supposed to prevent isn't prevented by K2 in some cases. Now, it's worth noting both these trials used people who already had a lot of calcium built up. So maybe K2 still helps earlier as prevention before the damage starts. That's a fair assumption, but nobody's really run that study, so it's a guess and not a defense. And it doesn't rescue the original warning anyway, but for someone to say that vitamin D by itself is dangerous doesn't mean K2 might help down the road. It means vitamin D is shoving calcium into your arteries right now, and that was tested in the people calcifying fastest, and nothing happened. So what do you actually do, especially if you're someone steadily pushing your vitamin D doses higher? Start with the question everyone gets backwards. Does taking more vitamin D mean you need more magnesium and K2 to keep up? The marketing's whole premise is that it does, that high-dose vitamin D quietly drains your other nutrients, which is where the danger supposedly comes from, but that idea has been tested directly. In a controlled trial, people given vitamin D for 6 months didn't lose magnesium. The magnesium levels actually went up. Whatever vitamin D is doing, it isn't burning through your reserves. The single specific claim underneath the fear points the opposite way. What no study has produced is a dosing rule. There's no trial that tells you to add a set amount of magnesium for every 1,000 units of vitamin D because the relationship doesn't appear to work that way. Your magnesium target isn't pegged to your vitamin D dose. It's just the normal amount everyone needs, even though most people aren't even getting that much. That amount is roughly 400 milligrams a day for men, 310 to 320 for women, and you may need 10 to 20% more depending on how active you are. K2 is simpler than the marking makes it. If you do want a number, the official target for vitamin K is about 120 micrograms a day for men and 90 for women. And notice that's a soft, adequate intake, not a hard requirement, because there isn't enough data to set a firm one. It's also based on vitamin K1, the kind in leafy greens, where the average person already gets enough from food. The K2 in supplements is a different form, at far higher doses with no official requirement behind it. If your goal is bone density, it's a reasonable addition with a modest, genuine benefit in some cases. If your goal is protecting your arteries from your own vitamin D, that's the job it's often sold for, and the one the trials show it doesn't do. That doesn't mean it does not work in harmony with vitamin D in the body, but the amount that you're getting from food might be enough to support its necessary functions in conjunction with vitamin D. So honestly, if you take vitamin D in recommended amounts, go ahead and keep taking it. Get your magnesium into the normal range, food, a supplement, whatever helps get you there. Not for the sole reason that your vitamin D demands it, but because you might be running short already. Make sure you're getting enough vitamin K from food. If you want to supplement with it, that's fine as well. It seems very safe. And drop the fear. Vitamin D on its own is not calcifying your arteries at doses that most people are taking.